No, the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there, except when they don't, because on Tuesday, every Tuesday on this show and on the Times Radio History YouTube channel, the historian Ian Wilson joins me for our regular feature, If Only We'd Known, explaining why actually the present rather closely resembles the past. Hello, Ian Wilson.
Hello there.
Thank you for being with us. Today, then, with a new look cabinet in place and a new look foreign secretary in the shape of Yvette Cooper, we're going to be talking about what we can learn from foreign secretaries of the past. So, overview here. In the modern era, being foreign secretary is seen as a sort of plum cabinet job, but it's still a cabinet job like any other. Is that how it always was, or was it once a very specific role?
Well, I think it was very specific in the 19th century when Britain was the superpower of the world. And the foreign secretary for much of the 19th century, and then he became prime minister, was Lord Palmerston, who had a very different approach to foreign affairs from those of most modern politicians.
Tell us about that approach.
Well, I mean, he wanted to put Britain first.
Mm-hmm.
But the phrase gunboat diplomacy was really invented to describe what he got up to. So if he didn't approve of a country like Brazil for continuing to have slavery, he literally sent gunboats in. And also he didn't ever consult other members of the cabinet or the prime minister or the queen about what he thought. So, for instance, when Napoleon III declared himself to be an emperor, having just been French president, Louis Napoleon was Napoleon's nephew, wasn't he? Palmerston sent congratulations on behalf of the British government, when, of course, most people in Britain were horrified by Napoleon and thought there was going to be another French invasion. So, I mean, that was his approach. Mm-hmm. I think nowadays we would like a foreign secretary to be two things. One is somebody very knowledgeable about abroad, and ideally having lots of languages and possibly friends in different countries, but also the absolute opposite of Lord Palmerston, namely somebody who didn't show all the cards in their hand. I mean, I'll give you an example of what I mean. David Lammy, when he came in as Foreign Secretary a year ago, almost the first thing he did was starting attacking Israel. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, lots of listeners must dislike what's going on in Gaza very much, but and it's up to them to say what they like in the letters page of the Times or in articles or whatever, or in our conversations. But if you're Foreign Secretary, you want to remain friends with as many people as possible. And you certainly don't want to upset the Israelis to the point where they don't take Britain seriously anymore.
Do you think then, I mean, Yvette Cooper, which example should she be following? Should she be following Palmerston and sort of ploughing her own furrow and waiting for the Prime Minister to pull her back when he doesn't agree?
Well, there's a third ingredient we haven't talked about, but which is an answer to your question. There is a great difference between being Foreign Secretary and being Prime Minister, but if you're a Prime Minister who's not very good at the job, or you're getting bored with the job or whatever, the temptation is to go and be a statesman on the world stage.
To become your own Foreign Secretary in the Tony Blair manner.
Tony Blair did it. And sometimes it's very effective. I mean, Tony Blair, when he started allying himself to Bush's desire to invade Iraq, that was obviously a disaster. But Tony Blair was good at making friends abroad, and Yvette Cooper's got some experience abroad. She actually worked with Bill Clinton, I think I'm right in saying. Am I right in saying that?
I don't know.
No, she was I think she was an intern. Not always a very safe thing to be.
No.
with Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, so she does know about America. Mm-hmm. But I think the trouble is, to go back to your first question and linking it with your position vis-à-vis the Prime Minister, nowadays you get these jobs, these high offices of state, Home Secretary, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Foreign Secretary, not necessarily because you're good at that particular area. It's because you have risen high in the party and the Prime Minister wants to reward you. And Yvette Cooper stood for the leadership of the Labour Party. She stood against Jeremy Corbyn, and all the kind of moderates or Blairites wanted her to be the leader of the Labour Party, so that in a way she had to be rewarded with a high office. I mean, I've got nothing against Yvette Cooper, and I certainly don't want to be rude about her personally, but when you listened to the radio this morning, I mean before your programme, and heard William Hague, you realised he is I'm not either Tory or Labour myself, but he's a person of much more weight and knowledge. She, as far as we know, doesn't really have any knowledge in the sphere of foreign affairs.
I suppose she may gain it in the job. It is, as you say, a job that senior politicians seem to really enjoy having. Some perhaps enjoy it slightly too much. Listen to this. This is Boris Johnson in Burma.
Stay safe.
We got Gunboat.
Come you back, you English soldier.
They just over there.
Remember that too.
That's the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson being caught on a hot mic reciting the pro-colonial Kipling poem Mandalay on a trip to Myanmar
I mean, that was one
in 2017.
of the most embarrassing moments to be British in my lifetime.
Really? That bad? Yeah.
I just thought... I mean, several old codgers whom I know, for reasons too boring to explain, who've been ambassadors and things like that, said that Boris Johnson was by far the worst Foreign Secretary they had ever known, and he was hated in the Foreign Office. He never read his papers properly, and everyone had told him it's very delicate in Myanmar. He just went along and showed off he knew this Kipling song, The Road to Mandalay, which is in itself rather an offensive song.
Was there a shade of Palmerston there in that he was following his own brief?
He obviously loves the idea of being Palmerston, and I mean, this is a family programme, so we'll keep it clean, but I mean, there were many points of resemblance between Lord Palmerston. You remember when Lord Palmerston was 81, he fathered a child.
Right, I understand,
and, the Israelis said, don't put it in the papers, otherwise everybody will vote for him. Because they liked the idea of a Jack the Lad, and that was actually part of Boris's charm, if you like that kind of thing. But he was a useless Foreign Secretary for all the reasons we've said, because he didn't hold back. And although he does speak average good French and has more experience of abroad than most people and is mixed race, he didn't have any sense of it being a rather responsible job. I mean, he's essentially an irresponsible person, isn't he? Whereas I think Yvette Cooper is a responsible, sensible, level-headed person, and we must keep our fingers crossed. The trouble with switching round and having reshuffles all the time, part of the job of being Foreign Secretary is having friends abroad, so when you go to one of these summits, you can think, oh, well, there's the old Foreign Secretary from France or Germany or even Russia or something, and then you can get proper negotiations going.
There have been notable cases of people becoming Foreign Secretary after they've been Prime Minister. Of course, there was David Cameron recently. Yeah. There was Alec Douglas-Home, I think, wasn't it as well?
Yeah, he did it.
That's from what you're saying. That sounds like quite a good idea. It brings the gravitas, brings the experience.
I think it is a good idea. And funnily enough, although in his early career, Alec Douglas-Home was a pretty disastrous figure because he was holding the bag for Chamberlain at Munich and kowtowing to Hitler. He grew into being a person of some weight, and as you say, having been Prime Minister and having been in the Foreign Office in one capacity or another for a very, very long time, he knew lots of people in the world stage. So did Douglas Hurd, actually. He was rather a good one. And Ernest Bevan, we shouldn't only mention Tory ones, was a great Foreign Secretary in Clement Attlee's government.
Horrified with myself that I pronounced Alex Douglas-Hume's name wrong. It's the perils of having notes in front of you. Look, it's sometimes suggested that we should have, diplomats as Foreign Secretary, rather than having politicians doing the job at all. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, sometimes I think, why not? But I think there is a distinction to be made. If we have good ambassadors, and on the whole, the women and men who go out on our behalf as ambassadors are of incredibly high quality, much higher quality of education and integrity than most of the politicians. You don't really need them in the cabinet. But I do think, I mean, there is something, I hate to say there's something to be said for anything that Nigel Farage is advocating, but there is something to be said for his idea of a cabinet of all the talents. And having, particularly as a Foreign Secretary, having some wise old person, not necessarily old in years, but who'd got decades of experience abroad. I think there would be something to be said for that. But don't let's rubbish Yvette before she starts. She might be all right.
Well, look, before we leave this then, and I ask this question extremely cautiously and with some trepidation, are there any particular recent Foreign Secretaries that meet with your approval?
Well, I've already mentioned Douglas Hurd. I think he was rather wonderful. And I think Ernest Bevan, for different reasons, because all the instincts of the left and all the instincts of nice people, particularly in the post-war years, were to make peace, and he was brave enough, I don't know whether it's right or wrong morally, but he was brave enough to insist on Britain remaining a nuclear power. Yeah. And that had an enormous effect on keeping world peace, I'm afraid to say.
Right, okay. I mean, so I guess I did say finally, but this is really my finally. Is it a job that you think people should do for a long time?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, like essentially. They shouldn't come...
They shouldn't keep chopping and changing with this one.
Yeah.
Though I think... Again, don't want to be rude about people, but I think Lammy was so bad at it, they had to get rid of him, really.
Well, he was friends with J.D. Vance, but I guess he can do that while being Deputy Prime Minister.
You see,
Oh, really? That's the sign. The anti-Palmerston. Look, thank you very much indeed, Ian Wilson. I say it every week, but it's always true, always an education. Thanks very much indeed for being with us.
Always fun to be here.